In yesterday's session, we have seen basic introduction on Azure SQL database. In short, we always call it as SQL database. Major benefits, if I put, high availability, on demand, and reduced management. Most of the features which we have in on-premise, we have them supported in SQL Azure database also. And yeah, these are the routine features which normal developers would use in their projects. There are certain things which are not supported by SQL server. I mean, they are not supported by SQL database, though they are supported by on-premise SQL server. So we have to keep these points in mind. Very important. We have now three options for database. One is we can use SQL database, the service in cloud, or we can use on-premise SQL server, or we can have in cloud a virtual machine with SQL server. So based on a lot of criteria, you have to make a decision which one is the most apt for your situation. We have seen how using Portal we can create a database inside a SQL server, which is actually a container, a SQL server container of different databases, and it hardly took any time for us to provision a new database. That's what we have observed. We have SQL Server Management Studio. We can make use of that SQL Server Management Studio for connecting to the SQL database. Or we can use Visual Studio also. Some client tool which works with your SQL server should also work with the SQL database. And then we have got the connection string from SQL database. We can get the connection string, we can get the username and password. And of course, we'll have to also give permission to the IP address from where we want to connect. The firewall has to be allowed. Then some basic code we wrote to make use of the SQL database. We have also seen how we can actually migrate. Well, for migrating, we can have actually the local database. From the local database, we can generate an SQL script, and that SQL script with some minor changes, we can then execute in the SQL database. And all these things can be done either using SQL Server Management Studio, or there is a SQL database migration wizard which we can download from the Codeplex. And yes, developers generally put connection string in web.config file. So we have also seen that there are different types of workloads, and based on the type of the workload, we have to decide the appropriate pricing tier. There are 4 service tiers actually, pricing tiers actually: basic, standard, premium, premium RS. Premium RS, though right now is in preview mode, eventually it will become live. So basic is really very basic, where we have only 5 DTUs, ideal for only a single database, which also will have only one request at a time. But otherwise, in routine web applications, we'll prefer minimum to have a standard edition, standard service tier with maybe 20 DTUs or 30 DTUs based on the requirement. DTUs is basically your measure of performance. More the number of DTUs, better will be the performance. So yes, maximum we can have is premium, where we can have 4,000 DTUs, pretty expensive. Only on need basis we are supposed to make use of. So generally it is 1 TB, but in extremely special cases we will have up to 4 TB subject to availability in that particular region. But otherwise, yeah, 1 TB is the maximum size of the database. You can decide on the database to have a separate pricing tier by itself, a traditional approach, or we can have a elastic database pool. In elastic pool which is created at the container level, we can add multiple databases, and to the elastic pool we are going to assign a certain amount of EDTUs for which we are going to be billed. The basic advantage of elastic pool is EDTUs are going to be shared across all the databases which are there in the Elastic pool. Portal gives us ability to set minimum number of EDTUs for every database and maximum number of EDTUs for every database. So based on our observation of the database usage in the past, we have to really decide whether to make use of a DTU or EDTU. That means a database should have independent service tier attached, or should it be shared along with other database in the EDTU. It's a major decision which the admin, or I would say the infrastructure guy, has to take care of. The IT professional will have to take care of. The operations guy have to take care of. Very important, EDTUs will cost 1.5 times of DTU. So unless we are very sure that we are going to have multiple databases, we are not going to go for EDTU. Simply going for EDTU for just one database will become expensive. So only those databases which have varying usages. That means if one database is being used now, the other will not be used, or vice versa, then only we should go for EDTUs. And also EDTUs are useful, sensible only if we have got varying unpredictable pattern of usage. That means sometimes it is used, sometimes it is not used. Like that, if you have the database, then only it is sensible to go for EDTUs. Something like this should be the pattern of your usage. So overall it would result like this. So databases which are going to be simultaneously used are not good candidates for Elastic pool. Very, very important point. So yes, these are certain points which I want you to read on your own later. Certain criteria which will help you to decide whether a particular database is a good candidate for Elastic pool or not. And how to estimate the number of EDTUs can be calculated like this. Then we have seen how we can create the pool. Remember, again I repeat, pool has to be created at the container level. And once the pool is created at the container level, we go to the pool, and after we create the pool, we have to add databases to it. Explicitly we will have to add the required databases to that pool. Elastic database pool limits and individual database pool limits. A table to be by hearted. Now coming to the new topic, that is monitoring Azure SQL database and alerting. I have already shown you, actually there are graphs which are available for monitoring. Monitoring the performance of SQL database in Azure starts with monitoring the resource utilization relative to the level of database performance you choose. So basically, when we have a particular database, yeah, it's there, sorry. We have a particular database. We have a separate section here, monitoring. So you can actually create alert rules, very important. I can add an alert. I can say that if the size of the database, the different metrics, we can choose from the required metrics. Failed connections. If number of failed connections have exceeded, see right now there is one failed connection, or no, that is a threshold, I think. Here you have to give greater than 1 or 2 over the last 5 minutes, raise an email. Like that, there are so many other thresholds. CPU percentage, if it is greater than 90, I would like to have, if it is greater than or equal to, less than, we can provide this condition. I can not only necessarily give metric greater than, we can also give less than. So when we know that the CPU utilization is less, maybe we can reduce the pricing tier. DTU limit, DTU used, all these are various parameters, metrics we call it, based on which an alert can be generated once a threshold is crossed. So that is one very important feature which we generally configure so that the administrators are alerted about some unpredictable situation, unknown situation. Then we also have here database size. I showed you yesterday. We can always see the size of the database. There is one more graph. Should be there in the overview now. Yeah, monitoring. So we can click on edit here. And once we click on edit, into this graph, we can add the required parameters. Right now, it is only DTU percentage. So all those parameters which are in terms of percentage, we can add. Database size percentage, IO percentage. We can add multiple parameters. The others are disabled because they are not in terms of percentage. So once we have a bar generated, or once we have a graph generated, all should have same measuring unit. That is the condition. So click on OK, and here you will have in different colors, different types of, see, different colors are there. Different types of parameters we can observe here. So yes, beautiful tool is there. Database size, CPU, all this you can add as per the requirement. As I said, only metrics with same unit of measure can be displayed in the chart at a time. We have seen how to add an alert, some dummy alert you add. You can also receive an email and see how the mail is formatted. You have elastic pool monitoring also in the similar lines. Now, next is auditing feature. So why do we do auditing? Auditing is what? We can see actually all the statements which are executed over a period of time. We can see retain an audit trail for selected events. We can report database activity. We can analyze the reports, find out if something is not as per expectation, suspicious event, unusual activity or trend. So for that purpose, we want to do auditing of our application. So when auditing is done, a lot of logging is going to happen. Now, where is this log going to be stored? There are two options available in the past, but going forward, Microsoft is deprecating one of them. That means it will be removed after some time. So everything right now is going to be logged into blob. Blob is a part of some storage account. So we have to create a storage account, specify the storage account reference, and then use that for auditing purpose. So I'll just quickly create a storage account. I want to show you how the auditing works. Always use storage account without classic. There are a lot of things which we have to discuss, but only when we work with storage account, let us go into those details. I'll just right now provide the basic details. I'm not changing anything. We have to discuss each one of these things when we start working with storage account. We'll have to wait till the storage account is created. But then we can now go to the database. We'll have to wait anyhow. These steps I have executed. Here we have auditing and threat detection. Click on that. Remember, this blade is referred as settings blade. This is settings blade, all settings blade. So auditing, you have to first enable it. Now, auditing can be enabled at the server level. That means for all the databases, it will be enabled automatically. But if you want only for a particular database, you can enable auditing if you are doing it here. As I said, we want it in blob. There is a cost now, $15 per server per month. It will be free for first 60 days if blob auditing or threat detection are enabled on the server. They'll always apply to database regardless of the database settings. Okay. Actually, there is a problem with the table. See, it's already giving you deprecated. And most important, even by chance, if you use table in your connection string, you'll have to add encryption enabled. Otherwise, it will not work. I'll show you. Like this, you have to add encrypt is equal to true. And you have to change the name of the server also. You have to add database.secure.windows.net. These two things we'll have to do provided we use table. So that is the reason preferably change it to blob, and obviously this will be removed after some time. So it is always recommended to use blob. So suppose if you use table today, after some time Microsoft themselves, when they are removing table, will switch you to blob and move all the data from table to blob. They will do it for themselves. They'll keep sending you warning message asking you to change. In case you do not act, they'll take the call after the deadline period. You can say threat detection on. Now what type of threat detection you want, you can enable that. All threat detection. There are different types of threat detection. SQL injection, very important actually. If somebody is trying to inject an SQL into our statements, SQL injection vulnerability, anonymous client login, all these are different types of threat detection which will be reported to us and at a bare minimum cost, which is very much affordable for security. Most of the sites are hacked because of SQL injection only. They'll inject something in your SQL statement and that can break your application, or they will get a unauthorized login into your application. And whenever something goes wrong, we want to get an alert. Save it. It will take a while. See, automatically storage account was selected here. Forgot to mention that. The one which we created, DSS demo storage, that's automatically selected here. Now we need to perform some CRUD operations over the So let us say I use something like yes. So now we need to perform the CRUD operations. CRUD operations basically means we need to perform insert, update, delete, select, those kind of queries we need to execute now. So how do we do that? We can use SQL Server Management Studio. Or we can make use of Visual Studio, or ideally we should do it through code. We should write some code and execute through code. Meantime, let us procure the connection string. How do we get it? Go to overview, and here we have the server. Copy this, go to Management Studio, paste it. Authentication should be SQL authentication. My IP since yesterday has not changed. That's why I'm connected by default. But if IP would have been changed, I'll have to go and give permission to that IP there. We'll have to expand tables. It's stuck.
Sandeep, you are referring to the IPs that yesterday you had.
Here we can execute the query. Somewhere something went wrong. I think my management studio disconnected. Hmm. Like that we can do insert into employee values 3 E3, maybe something. Select that, execute. Delete from employee where ID is equal to 2. Okay, now let us see the auditing result. I have performed the CRUD operations here. So now go back to auditing and threat detection, and here we will have view audit logs. Sometimes it is going to take time to get this updated. So maybe if I do not see those insert delete statements now, we'll have to come back after some time and then see those statements. Yeah, as it is progressing. Don't know why it's taking longer time. Yeah. View audit logs. And you see here, authentication successful. It's time in UTC. select, delete, select, insert. So complete logging is happening of all the statements which are getting executed. So administrator can come here and check what went wrong. Once something goes wrong, he can come and check which statement was executed, at what time was it executed, and that's it. Remember, auditing is only used here for viewing once the statement has executed. You cannot control anything from here. It's just a read-only data. So very important feature for administrators or somebody who is managing the database or somebody who wants to see how the statements got executed. Very important is the IP address also we are getting. So which user has executed, that information is here. I connected with login DSS admin and from this machine. So we can pinpoint that this particular place, this statement got executed, and if something is wrong, maybe we'll have to go and check there. So let's now get into import and export of database. So basically, see, availability of database is something very important point. Your database should be available for as much time as possible. Ideally 99.9% in some cases. But of course that will involve some extra cost. If you want 99.9 SLA, service level agreement, cost will be extra but possible. So, and of course if your database crashes, you should be able to get most of it and continue. So those kind of things now we are going to discuss here. You cannot directly use database and transaction log backup capabilities of SQL Server. That is one limitation we have here. Historically, this was remediated by periodically exporting a copy of each database that you want to project. So what we do? So we need to actually take a backup and use that backup whenever we want to get back the database. So earlier what we used to do is periodically we have to manually take the backup. That means we create a file called as BACPAC, backpack file has to be created, and that backpack file we can either use it within Azure for creating a new database, or we can actually use in on-premise also. The backpack file we can either use it in Azure or on-premise for restoring the database. So how to create a backpack, that is one option we have to look at. Not only that, we can also create a copy of the database. Suppose you already have a database. For this database, you can create a copy. So go to overview. You can simply say copy. So whatever is the current state of the database, consistent state will be copied on the target server. You can create a new server and take a copy in that, or in the same server also you can create a copy by another name. It's your choice. You can decide when you're taking a copy, you can decide to have a different pricing tier. So copy can be either on same or different server. To pricing tier can be changed. Basically it's a new database altogether. And if you want, you can also decide and put that in the elastic pool. Here we call it as service tier actually. So these 2 points are important, right? So I'm not doing that. It just creates one more copy. Now why I'm not doing it? Creating one more copy is going to cost us extra for that particular copy. So when we have a database already in the pool, we can create one more copy of that database in the same pool as a separate consistent state copy. Then we are not going to get extra build because we are using the existing pool. We are not consuming any extra eDTUs. That's why it is preferred to have in the same elastic pool, provided you have elastic pool. But otherwise, if you simply create a new copy without an elastic pool, new number of DTUs are going to be used as per the pricing tier, service tier, and then you are going to be billed extra for it. So take care of this aspect. You can also do the same using PowerShell command in case you want to. Azure SQL database copy. You have to give the source server, database name, partner server is the destination server, and you can specify continuous copy option in case you want to. So for continuous copy, the source and the target cannot reside on the same server, and the server and host of server that hosts the source and target must be part of the same subscription. This is the condition. Continuous copy will keep copying the data on a regular basis from source to destination. So copy is one option for creating a copy of our database. Advantage of copy is the copy is immediately live. So you can use one database for your production purpose, and you can create a copy and perform your analysis on that database without disturbing the production database. That is the basic advantage for copy at this point of time. And one more, copy is always a consistent state of a database. That means there is nothing half transaction in that. All completed transactions only will be part of the copy. Second is we want to export a database. So how to export a database? Whatever is our current database, we can click on the option export, and in this particular file name it will be exported. But where is the file stored? The file is going to be stored in a storage account. So that storage account has to be used here. So we already created one storage account. We can use that. Create a new container. Demo DB backup, all lowercase. Access type private. All this I'm going to teach you later. Don't worry about it. So right now we are just taking a new container into which a file is going to be created by this name with the extension backpack. Specify the username and password for accessing that database. Click on OK. So now it is going to take the backup in background, and it is going to take some time for it. Obviously the amount of time is going to depend upon the size of your database, and you can monitor that. Here only you can click actually. Import export history. Actually it should be in the blade. I am not seeing it. Let's check in the container. Yeah, it's in the container. DSS demo DB import export history. It will show you the current status. Backup is, export is in progress, and as I said, it's going to take some time, and a file is going to get created. Now where is that file? It will be in the storage account. So go to storage account. In the storage account we have a specified container in blob. Go to blob. Under blob we'll find container. DSS demo DB backup, and in that there is a file. Of course right now it's 0 bytes. It will take some time, and then finally the file will be having the actual size. So like that, a copy, a backup, export of the database is being taken. Now what is the advantage of export? Now one of the advantage of export is we can take that file and bring it to our on-premise and create a new database on-premise from that backpack file. That's really one beautiful advantage because of the export. If you simply use copy, you cannot get the database locally. It will be in Azure portal only. So from Azure, if you want to have it in on-premise, this is the option available. Archiving or moving to another platform, you can export schema and data. Both is a zip file with an extension backpack. Can be stored in Azure Blob or in local storage in on-premise location and later imported back into SQL database or in SQL Server on-premise installation also. That means in our on-premise also there is an option. If you are exporting to blob storage, a maximum size is 200 GB. To archive a larger backpack, export it to local storage. That's the point you have to keep in mind. Maximum is 200 GB here, which is also fairly big size for database kind of thing. But limitation you have to remember, the maximum size of backpack file is 200 GB. That number you have to remember. If not, go for local storage. For an export to be transactional consistent, this is important. You must ensure that either you are not writing at that point of time, or ideally what we do is we first create a copy and then the copy we take a backup. Keep this point in mind. See, if I am taking the backup of my production database, there is a chance that some inconsistent transaction will get recorded, which is not good. So you have to keep in mind that when your application is not running, at that time you take an export, or you first create a copy and take the export of the copy. Either of these two you have to take care of. These are the steps. Yes, same thing again can be done through PowerShell also. This is the main command you have to remember. New Azure RM SQL database export. New Azure RM SQL database export. RM is resource manager. And after that, you can check the status here. Get Azure RM SQL database import export. And here you see there are parameters related to resource group, the server name, the database name, the storage key. Now what is the storage key? The storage key refers to actually the storage account. Storage account is also secure. So unless you provide the storage key, you cannot access the storage account. Backpack URI, administrator login, administrator password. I am not asking you to remember this. Just remember this: new Azure RM SQL database export. And you have to remember this: get Azure RM SQL database import export status. So this is actually the right way of doing an export in new portal. But certification exam still got me this question, the older way of doing it. So first we get the credentials, new Azure SQL database server context, and then your start Azure SQL database export. Both are same. Either use this approach. Here it is new and RM, resource manager. The new portal always will have Azure RM in the command. The old portal will have just Azure without RM. But certification exam is still old, I think. They have not upgraded from this option to this option yet. So exam will have what are the steps you want to perform. They'll give you all these commands on the left hand side, and you'll have to put them in order on the right hand side. Of course, you'll have 7 to 8 options, out of which 3 to 4 only you have to move it to the right. In which sequence we have to execute the commands, like that questions will be asked. So honestly, it is simply a memory test which is going to be performed. So by heart these commands. Ideally, whenever you get leisure time, just copy and execute so that you understand. So what is that we have done? We have either created a copy of the database, or from the copy we have exported the database. Two things. Now obviously when we export, we can also import it from that same place only. You can go to server, SQL server, and in SQL server you should have the option to import. This is the option. So from the backpack file, you can have a new database created. You have to choose here. That file you'll have to choose. I am not waiting. Actually, it takes sometimes 24 hours also for a backpack file to get created. Of course, in my case, it might take maybe half an hour or so because there is hardly anything into it. But otherwise, based on the database size, it will take a lot of time. So we have to select this. I'm not going to click on OK though. But yes, from that database backpack file, a new database can be created. Administrator username and password for the new database, new pricing tier. And this is the command, new Azure RM SQL database import. Here it was SQL RM database export. Same import export status. So this is how you can take backup of your database and use it for restoration. This is one option. Now there is one more beautiful feature which will help us to continue the business in case of database crash. Now what is that? If you remember, I already told you, for every database we have 3 copies created. So by chance if one copy goes wrong, Azure will automatically ensure that it will switch to the other and continue utilizing it. So every insert operation or update operation or delete operation or any kind of SQL operation is supposed to reflect in all the 3 databases. This you have to keep it in mind. Second, SQL database automatically, this automatically is interesting here, creates a database backup and uses Azure read access geo redundant storage to provide geo redundancy. There is something called as geo redundancy feature where the copy of our database will be created in a different region, and that copy can also be used for reading. See, there are now multiple copies. One copy is the original copy where we continue to perform insert, update, delete and select operations, and there can be one more copy where we are going to perform just reading operation, select operation. We are not going to do an update there. So that is one option available. Of course, I'm going to show you that. SQL database automatically performs a combination of full database backup weekly, automatically again, differential database backup hourly, and transactional log backup every 5 minutes to protect your database from any kind of data loss. SQL database is automatically performing all these operations. Full and differential database backups are, now what is full and what is differential? Full is current state will be taken completely as it is. But after taking full, let us say we need to now, the transactions are going on. So we need to now take the latest transactions into account. So only the new transactions will be recorded. That's what is called as differential. It will not take the backup every time. Full backup will not be taken every time. So the full and differential backups are also replicated to a paired data center for protection against a data center outrage. These backups are created automatically. SQL database provides up to 200% of maximum provision database storage as backup storage at no additional cost. So if your database is of type size, let us say 10 GB, up to 20 GB, you are going to get a copy with no extra cost. And even if you cross that 20 GB, you are only going to be billed as per the storage account cost. No, I don't want to be billed for that storage account. Yes, you have to change your retention policy. The retention period has to be changed so that the older ones will expire automatically. You have to choose to reduce the retention period, and unfortunately there is no way you can yourself do that. You'll have to contact support, Azure support. You'll have to write an email, or you have to go to Azure portal and contact their support. You have an option, support. And through support you will have to get your retention period reduced in case your database is growing more than 200% and if you don't want any extra cost. Of course, the other option is to pay for the extra storage that is built at read access geo redundant storage. See, a lot of places I am referring to actually storage account, but that topic is not covered. So when we cover storage account, certain things I am going to refer again from database topic. Storage account will be referred once again. Based on the service tier, the retention period varies. For basic, it is 7. Standard and premium, it is 35 days. Now, when do we need to depend on this automated backup for business continuity? Provided our operations are not mission critical. That means even if we are ready to lose some data, we are only doing some kind of surveys, some kind of non-important data we are trying to store, then yes, we'll go for automated backup dependency. But there are certain cases where we have mission critical. Now, how to handle that mission critical, I'll come back and discuss later. But right now we are talking about non-mission critical, which is automated. It doesn't have a binding SLA. That means it's okay to have our database down for more than 24 hours. That means something like a bank obviously cannot depend on automated backup. And we have very rare data change. Changes are also not very frequent. And of course, we want to have low cost. Cost is a concern. So in those kind of cases, we really depend on automated backup. Now, what is the alternative? The alternative is, I'll come back to steps later. The alternative is we go for geo replication. We call it as active geo replication. Now in active geo replication, we configure our database such that for our database we are going to have up to 4 readable secondary databases. Either you depend on automated backup, but automated backup problem is what? It will take lot of time to restore, and second thing, not necessary that all your data, that is till last transaction, will be logged. or recovered. Good chance that some amount of transaction can be lost. That is when we go for active geo replication, when we want our last transaction also to be recovered. So here what is going to happen? We'll have a primary database. Let me show you this first. We'll have the primary database. And in primary database, this is geo replication. You have to scroll. Now configure. So at the time of creating my database, I have given a location, South India, I believe. That's what is this. Now I want it to be replicated at another location. Maybe I'll go for this. So right now South India is the place where my primary database is. In addition to South India, I can have 4 more places where my database will be replicated. Now, if I am very sure that if South India is bombarded, Central India is going to be safe, then I'll choose this option. But no, if I'm not very sure, I'll probably go for some other place where my data will be replicated. Right? For demo purpose, it's fine. I'm choosing Central India. The moment I click on the Central India, region is locked. Secondary type. Now there are 2 options actually, readable, non-readable, but eventually Microsoft is going to make everything as readable only. They'll remove this option. I think, yeah, it's here, you see. In June 2007, non-readable secondary type will be retired. This will go away. They have given already the warning here. So what is the difference between readable, non-readable? If you give readable, some people can read data from the readable copy. So primary can be used for performing input-output operations, insert, update, delete, CRUD operations. And this secondary copy can be used for only read operations. We can read data from it, but we cannot perform transactions on it. Reports can be generated from it. Target server, you can specify where you want to store it. A new server has to be given. So when there is new server, obviously we got the new URL. So some applications can connect to this URL. This has the server name. Pricing tier, again you can choose here. Okay. Now it is going to create a replica, and you can see that here. You see a graph is showing. Whatever is here, all that is getting duplicated in this particular database. Good thing is every action on this will be immediately reflected in this. Instant reflection will be there. But the performance of the clients which are using this database will not be affected because this is asynchronous. This action is asynchronous. It is not synchronous. Asynchronously, data is taken from primary database to the secondary database. So this is active geo replication. Active geo replication. And earlier, what was it? Geo redundant. Where is it? It is not active. It is just geo redundancy. So there are 2 options. Where is it mentioned? Okay, yeah, geo redundancy. So one is geo redundant, implies a copy of your database is created and you can use that copy for restoration. But these are the points you have to keep in mind. The other is active. Active advantage is what? All these things. It's mission critical. Yes, go for active. You want service SLA? Yes, it should be active. Downtime will result in financial liability. Has high rate of data change. You should be ready for that extra cost of active geo replica. Active geo active geo replication has that extra cost. Now it's completed now. Now suppose we find that this server is down. What we can do is click on that target and we can swap it actually. Yeah, here. This is right now my primary. I want to switch. I know there is a problem on this server now. Just click on this and fail over. So this is now going to become primary and this will become secondary. They will swap. In no time it will happen. Maybe 2-3 minutes maximum it should happen. The only thing you'll have to take care of is, based on the swap, you have to take care of the change in connection string of your application. So only that much amount of time where it is taking for swapping and change of connection string is where my application would be down. Yes, application will be down because there is a database failure. It's not a small failure. Because of that, no doubt application will go down, but in no time we will be able to bring it back. Understood the steps? Just select the secondary and you'll have the option fail over. And how many copies you can have secondary? 4. Up to 4 copies of secondary can be there. And for every copy we are going to get extra billed. Billing will be extra. So there is a table mentioned somewhere. Yeah, this one. You see, okay, there is one more option I did not cover. I'll cover that also. But right now we are talking about geo restore and active replication. These two. Active replication, recovery point objective is minimum amount of time recent update can be lost. That means last 5 seconds transactions will be lost. If your database has crashed, whatever transactions have happened in last 5 seconds, there is a possibility of they getting lost. And in 30 seconds, it is supposed to be switched. Estimated recovery time. Here you see in geo restore, if I show you how to do restore, that I'll show you, I haven't showed you yet. It is going to take up to 12 hours and there's a possibility of up to 1 hour of data loss. So we have covered this and this option actually right now. Then there is one more point in time restore. But before that, let me show you how to do a geo restore. Strangely showing still pending, or maybe it is already done. I'll have to close this blade. DSS demo DB. Go to server, database. Okay, demo DB is database, geo application. Oh, it's still doing it. Okay, let's come back. In the meantime, I can actually create a new database. And when I'm creating a new database, we can choose backup. Backup of which database? That we'll have to choose here. So my demo DB database is there. I told you there is an automated backup of demo DB being taken somewhere. So from that backup, I want to create now a new database. Got it? From the backup, a new database is going to get created. Those are these steps. Going up, there are 3 different sections I'm teaching you all together, and we'll consolidate last. Restore a database to any logical server, geo restore. So why any logical server? Because we can change the server here. No. It should be to same logical server. Sorry. Yeah, it's mistake. It should be same logical server. Server is locked. Rest you can change. So from the automated backup of my DSS demo DB, which is taken automatically at an interval I showed you before. What is the interval? Every week, full database. Every hour, differential. And transaction log, 5 minutes. So this we can lose. So backup hourly. Till here we will be able to recover it. Then here also it is showing you warning. You can also restore a database to a point in time from database blade. Now what is this point in time? Now let me go back to the original database. Here we have the restore option. And advantage of this is I can specify, see, this is oldest restoration point, right? Based on the retention period that will be provided. So I created this yesterday only. That's why it is showing me that date. So if it is last 7 days, I have used basic. Basic means restoration can be up to 7 days. So in last 7 days, you can select any date and any time, and it will get restored at that it will get restored to that particular point of time. So you know that since yesterday something went wrong in my database. I want to get back a database to a state as it was yesterday. So I'll do that. I'll first have a database name restored. After that, what I'll do is I'll drop the old database and I'll rename this database to the new name. That's it. So from yesterday to today, all changes can be discarded. So that's what is point in time restore. So three different options. See now, this is swapped. South India was here, Central India was here. South India has now become readable, whereas this is online form. So there will be a lot of exam questions which will give you a situation and it will ask you choose the right backup policy or restoration policy. What do you want to use for restoration? So let us summarize the business continuity. We have basically three options. Actually, first one we have already, this is already covered. One is copy and export. This is manual. This is manual process and this is going to cost us extra. When we create a copy, we have to pay extra for the copied version of the database. Even if you export, that file is going to get created in the storage account. So for that storage account, we are paying extra, right? This is extra cost, extra burden. But this is the only way in case we want to move the database from one location to the other location, from one Azure account to another Azure account, or from an Azure account to on-premise. This is the only option available. Two, we have business continuity options. What in case business continuity means what? What in case the database is going to crash? So there we have the option of using point in time restore. We have the option of using point in time restore. We have the option of creating a new database from the automated copy of the existing database. And third is we implement active geo-replication. Point in time restore will help us to get a consistent state of database from the time of the retention period, which is 7 days for basic and 35 days for the standard and premium editions. Whereas in case of crash, when we want to restore and if the database is not very important, we can afford to lose data, we can actually create a new database. You should go to new database option and specify backup rather than using blank or sample. We should specify backup, and after that specify the backup of the primary. I have to choose primary. So backup of that primary is going to be used for restoration from the automatic. And of course the third option I explained was active replication, but active replication has to be initiated manually first. Browser got stuck. Third is active replication. Active replication advantage is it's much faster when compared to the other two. So when you are working with mission critical data with a SLA service level agreement with your customer, so that your database is not going to be down for a longer period of time, you have a financial liability In those kind of cases, you'll have to go for active geo replication. Your data is changing very frequently and you want all the data to be recovered up to last 5 minutes, 5 seconds rather, up to last 5 seconds. Why this 5 seconds actually? This 5 seconds is also because from primary to secondary update will take, that is asynchronous update I told you, and that asynchronous update will probably take 5 seconds, maximum 5 seconds. When we are doing operations on primary, for it to get updated to secondary, it can have up to 5 seconds of delay. That 5 seconds of delay data will be lost. So point in time restore, geo restore, geo replication. Remember, this is replication, this is restore. This is supposed to be manual, this is automatic, this is automatic. Then all these commands, in case you want to, I just recorded them for your benefit. In case you want to use it, I think all this covered. I showed you how to do a failover from secondary. Secondary will become primary, and that's all. That is, we have got now the last option, that is long-term backup retention. You want to retain backup for 10 years. What is the option then? Obviously, automatic backup, point in time restore, all these things will not work in that kind of case. So then you'll have to create a backup vault. If you remember, we have created a backup vault when we used virtual machine, and in the backup vault we added the virtual machine. Like that only, you'll have to now create a backup vault, or go here directly, long-term backup retention, select the database, I don't want to enable this option. With great difficulty, what I created last time I deleted. Long-term backup retention allows you to store weekly backup in Azure Recovery Service Vault up to 10 years. This helped you meet compliance and other data retention requirements. Once configured, backup show in the vault within next 7 days. Of course, the demo anyhow cannot be completed. So you just try this option. First, what you'll have to do, let me accept the terms and conditions. Click on OK. Recovery Service Vault is not configured yet. So we'll have to configure the Recovery Service Vault now. How to do that? Go to More Services and use Recovery Service Vault and create a new Recovery Service Vault here. And after you create a new Recovery Service Vault, you'll have to add database to that Recovery Service Vault. And then you have to start the backup. Steps are here in case you want to do that. To recover, these are the operations you have to perform. Try on your own, but once created, see, it has eaten away my $1,000. I don't want to try once again now. And it's a pretty straightforward steps. Try on your own. So that is the long-term backup. Now once you have taken a long-term backup, how do we restore it? At the time of creating a new database, we should choose the option backup. No, sorry. I think it should be at the time of restoration. We should choose the option long-term backup and here specify the backup vault. Whatever existing backup vaults are there, in that backup vault, what are the backups which are taken weekly basis. You can choose that, and from there you can restore it and proceed normal after that. Something surprise to me is this. How come I have two databases with same name? Oh, this is secondary. One is primary, the other is secondary. And one more thing, when you delete a database, unless you have deleted the container of it, I have only deleted the database, right? I have not deleted the container of it. So I go to the container, and in container here you'll have last deleted databases. Deleted databases. See, they're making a lot of changes. Earlier that option was here. Now they have shifted it here. Deleted database. So go to deleted database. You can choose and recover. Restore actually. You can get back that database even after deletion. But what is the condition? The container should not have been deleted. If you delete the container, it's gone. The SQL server container should not be deleted for that. Then only it is recoverable. Deletion time, and we are recreating from it. So that's all about all the database operations. You have to read this whole handout. At least I would say 3 to 4 questions you can expect from this particular chapter in the certification. 3 to 4, not more, not less.